Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video I'm going to be doing a little overview of the Apple TV first generation right here that I recently acquired from a garage sale here in my area. Now I recently did a episode of Thrift Store and Garage Sale Finds which included this Apple TV right here as well as a couple other things that I found from that day when I went garage sailing. So if you want to kind of get a little bit of a backstory on how I got this and what other items I got, I'd recommend you go ahead and hit that card at the top right of your screen right now to go ahead and check that video out. But as I said, today we're going to be doing just a little overview on the Apple TV right here. So believe it or not, the Apple TV first gen right here was not Apple's first attempt at getting into the home entertainment business, but this was the first successful one, or at least moderately successful. Apple's first attempt was actually something called the Macintosh TV. This device was released in 1993, and it was essentially a Macintosh computer that had a TV tuner built in that would allow you to watch TV right on, the same device that you would actually use as a computer. The only downside was you could not do both of them at the same time. So you know how like today when you open up like a web browser and you can have Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or whatever, even YouTube, running in a tab kind of on your second monitor or in the corner of your screen, and you can do computer things, write emails, Word documents, whatever. You can do both of those things at the same time. Well, the Macintosh TV, it just wasn't that way. It was either you were in Mac OS or you would switch over to the TV mode on the computer and you would watch TV. You could not kind of have like a TV window running from within Mac OS that would allow you to watch TV and use your computer. So that was kind of a bit of a downside, and this device wasn't that successful. It only sold about 10,000 units, which makes it a pretty rare Apple product to find today because there's only about 10,000 of them out there. So yeah, that was their first attempt, the Macintosh TV. Their next attempt was actually something that was never even released, and it was called the Apple Interactive Television Box. This was a prototype device that was never released to the public. It never came to fruition, but it was an actual set-top box created by Apple, and they were planning on partnering with telecommunications companies to actually provide TV service to this box. And it ended up not really, coming to fruition. As I said, Apple just never really, continued development. But there is evidence. There was even at one point a manual of this device on Apple's official website. So a lot of people believe that, before that they killed it off, they were very, very close to actually releasing it. This was in like 1995, so just 2 years after the Macintosh TV was announced. So yeah, that was their second attempt. And then if you want to count the Bandai Pippin as the third attempt, to get into the entertainment industry, it wasn't really TV, but the Bandai Pippin, I'm sure you guys have heard all about that. Another bit of a rare Apple product as well. And that brings us to the Apple TV first gen right here. Now this device was previewed. It wasn't fully released, but it was previewed on September 12th, 2006 at an Apple keynote where Steve Jobs did something that Apple is not known to do very often, and that is give a little bit of a sneak peek at a future product. The name of the device at that time was iTV. It wasn't called Apple TV yet, so iTV kind of acted as a code name or an internal name for this device. And yeah, Steve Jobs got up on stage, previewed the whole thing, which, as I said, is not something that Apple is known for doing. So what is the Apple TV? If you've never heard of it before, the Apple TV is essentially a device that, when it was introduced in 2006, it was intended to bring your iTunes library, so your movies, photos, music, TV shows, all the content you purchase on iTunes, to your big screen TV, which is something that a lot of people wanted to do because prior to the Apple TV being introduced, there was no official way to watch all this content on your TV. You could watch them on your iPod video, on your Mac or your iBook, but you could not watch it on your TV, at least through official means. You could just hook up your Mac to your TV if you wanted to, but that wasn't the most ideal solution. So Apple came out with this box to attempt to solve this problem and to enable people to actually watch the content they paid for on their TV. And how does it work? Well, let's go ahead and open it up here and I'll kind of show you that. So we'll go ahead and set this aside. We get our classic designed by Apple in California. We'll go ahead and open this up. And here it is right here. It's a simple silver box, you know, gray on the top, silver on the side. That's it. That's the entire thing. We'll go ahead and take it out here, and I will set this aside. Unfortunately, as I mentioned in that original video, that's the only thing that came in this box. There was no remote, although it did come with some manuals, but there's no remote. So hopefully, if this thing does work, which I haven't tested it, hopefully we can figure out a way to interact with this thing. Just for size comparison, here is an iPhone right here. So there's kind of how big that it was. This is an iPhone 6s right here. So you may be thinking, why is this device so large compared to something like the newer generation Apple TVs today? Well, the main reason for that is that this actually contains a regular desktop hard drive in here. It was either sold in 40 gigs or 160 gigs. And unlike the Apple TVs today, you know, the second to the fourth gen, and, you know, the Apple TV 4K being the newest one, this isn't really like a streaming box per se. While it did have streaming features like with YouTube, the way you got all of your content onto this device was much like you would with an iPhone or an iPod. You would sync it with iTunes. You would actually wirelessly or wired, if you use the Ethernet on this, you would sync this to your iTunes library, and the content would actually be downloaded and stored on this device locally. So you wouldn't be streaming it from your iTunes library, which was one thing that a lot of customers didn't really like. They didn't want to have to go in here and sync all their stuff over to here, and then you would run out of space on here, and then you have to, you know, remove stuff from here. It was just a pain. So that's when Apple decided to make it a full streaming box with the second gen, which was a very, you know, good decision on their part. But the first one here had a regular hard drive in here to store all that data. Now, how much did it cost? Well, it cost $299. Yeah, $300, which is $200 more than what the second gen sold for. So you can kind of see how they were able to drop that price pretty significantly with the second gen. It was officially released on January 9th, 2007. So let's talk about specifications. One thing that's very interesting about the Apple TV here is it actually has an Intel Pentium M processor. So not one of Apple's, you know, like the A4, the A5, one of Apple's ARM-based chips. This actually had a Intel x86 based chip, and for the RAM it only had 256 megs of RAM, but for what you were doing with this, which is just watching TV and watching movies, playing music, it worked just fine. Now, one thing that is very cool about this, and something that we're definitely going to be taking a look at in a future video, is due to the fact that this does have a x86 based Intel Pentium M processor, it is possible to install a full-fledged version of macOS 10 or even Linux as well. Now, the official Apple firmware that is installed on this device right here is actually based off of macOS 10.4 Tiger. So yeah, a full desktop class OS is basically running on this thing, just with a different interface. Let's go ahead and move around to the back here, and I'll show you what ports we have. So going from left to right, we've got our power port. This thing did have an internal power supply, so it's very nice. We have a USB port right here, Ethernet, HDMI, component video, analog audio, and we also have optical audio as well over here. Now, this USB port is actually what we can use to install Linux, and because this thing is basically just like a computer, it recognizes this USB port as like a regular USB port. You can even, if you install like a Linux distro, you can plug like a USB hub in here, plug a keyboard, mouse, and you can use this thing as a regular computer. So as I said, if you guys want to see that video, be sure to let me know, but I definitely have plans to do that. So that's enough rambling about, you know, a brief history of this device. Let's actually go ahead and try to plug this thing into my TV over here, and we'll see if it actually works, and if it does, we'll see if we can actually interface with this. Alright, so we are back, and as you can see, I have plugged in the Apple TV, and this thing works perfectly. It works just exactly as it was intended to. There doesn't seem to be any issues with it. It's, you know, powering up right here. So we'll go ahead and let it boot up and play its nice little intro animation here, which it should do momentarily, so we'll just wait for that. And there we go. So yeah, I don't own an Apple TV currently, so I don't know if the new ones start up like this, but this is definitely a very nice little intro video that they made here for it. So when it boots up, you know, there's no content on it, so it doesn't go to that nice view where it's got all of like the, you know, movies and the TV shows and everything coming in from the side. All it's got is this little basic menu here. Now, as I mentioned, I don't have a Apple remote for this currently, and I even tried to download the remote app on my iPhone, But because this thing isn't on the Wi-Fi network, it's not going to be able to, obviously, the app isn't going to be able to find it. The only way to get this thing connected to a Wi-Fi network is to have the remote, or there may be, some other workarounds. But I think just for this video has gone on, long enough, and it was mainly just for a overview and talk about the history of it. That was kind of the meat of this video. So that is pretty much going to go ahead and wrap it up for today's video. If you guys enjoyed this video, definitely be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Be sure to get subscribed down below if you haven't already, and turn on notifications to get notified whenever I upload new videos in the near future, which I do on this channel every week. And be sure to drop me a comment letting me know your thoughts on the Apple TV, your experience with it. Do you own one currently? Did you own this first gen? Be sure to let me know, because I always enjoy reading what you guys have to say. And let me know if you're excited to see me trying to install Linux or OS X on this, as I'm definitely really excited to try that out. So let me know if you guys want to see that. And as always, guys, I just want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.